James Melendez, James All About Business. Today's topic is about knowledge management. One of my favorite topics to talk about. It's about leveraging organizational knowledge for the best use for your organization to be a Class A organization. Stay tuned. So this is a subject matter that I think often gets confused and is muddled with information management, which is not the same thing as knowledge management. These are two separate practices. This is a methodology and encompasses many tools, many components to making sure that the organization is optimizing and utilizing the knowledge it creates every single day. It's not only optimizing the knowledge that it's creating, it's making sure that individual employees are obtaining that knowledge to complete their jobs and to do so with the best knowledge possible. Now, you can look at IT organizations, and sometimes they often will raise their hand and say that they have a solution. They're the owners of knowledge management. They may be the owners of, say, data or maybe information management, but they're not the owners or shouldn't be the natural owners of knowledge management. This is where it's been muddled for quite some time, and organizations get stuck. They don't know how to move forward, and in fact, there's not a knowledge management expert to guide it along. There needs to be a continuous improvement organization or quality management organization for organizations to move this forward. It should be not just for-profit, but for nonprofit and governmental organizations as well. What is knowledge management? I looked at a lot of definitions, and some of the definitions I think are rather imprecise. They're in the orange. So I selected Oxford English, which says efficient handling of information and resources within a commercial organization. Macmillan says a policy within an organization keeping information about everyone's knowledge and training. When I look at both of these definitions, I think they're missing quite a bit actually. Efficient handling information is not the same thing as knowledge. It's not just within a commercial organization. It's actually within all organizations, for governmental as well as nonprofit and especially for-profit organizations. And then the next definition, which is a policy. Well, it's more than a policy, it's a culture. It's a way of transacting. It's a way of making sure the organization is being more effective, is being responsive, and is actually actioning upon the knowledge that it creates every day. So my definition is a formal and active function of an organization to retain, use, and build on knowledge to meet an organization's needs and differentiate itself from competitors. So the reason to develop, organize, create, manage, implement, whatever you want to term this, is to create a distinction point between you and your competition. So in terms of, say, the knowledge management cornerstones, there are basically two. Knowledge is captured and owned by two specific areas. That is, the tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge is owned by the individual, often thought of as subject matter experts. And so these are what I call the knowledge owners, and there's also the knowledge seekers. But tacit knowledge, implicit knowledge is something that's very hard to just codify. You can't just write it down. How do they teach knowledge? How is it instilled? It's done over time. It's done through an apprenticeship. There's many ways of getting to an implicit knowledge for all individuals that need to have that knowledge. Also explicit knowledge, which is codified knowledge. It's something that can be looked at. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's audio material, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a document. There's ways of understanding explicit knowledge and then making sure you have a full set of knowledge at your disposal for your organization, and each member has that information available to them as well. So in the particular slide here, quality management is really key and essential. Think about your organization. Do you want your customers to not have the best information possible? What happens when the subject matter expert is not at the office or is not available to answer a question or to give some expertise to, say, a salesperson in another state, another country, definitely another time zone? And ultimately, they may need a timely response and they don't have it. So maybe they get a substandard answer or substandard knowledge to answer that particular customer's question. Well, in the end, that's a bad thing because ultimately all customers deserve the best knowledge possible, and they deserve the wisest knowledge, the most sage knowledge to move forward. And guess what? Your customer will remember that. They will think of that in terms of you delivering or not delivering, or even delivering substandard knowledge. So organizational continuity. People do leave organizations. They do retire. They go on extended vacations. You need the ability to pull down information when you need it, knowledge when you need it. Also, complexity management, and it's also fitting in very nicely with solving difficult problems. So many organizations do not know how to solve the problems they are in today. They could look at past experiences or maybe similes to understand and to actually have a model to move forward. So having the best knowledge possible to move forward in difficult situations with complex problems is required in our very competitive world that we are in today. So when I looked online for more articles or videos on knowledge management, it seemed to be that product development and innovation was key. It came up quite often, but I actually don't think it's the only reason. It's not the sole reason. It's one amongst many reasons. Also, there is operational needs. How did the experience in the past inform the future to do the best job possible? And then finally, there's processes and organizational learning are additional motivations for implementing a knowledge management program. This very simplified view of knowledge build is knowledge in terms of the course of time. It's increasing every single day. So on the right column, you'll see created throughout the day. In fact, it's created many times a day. It's created every hour. It's created every minute. It's created 7 days a week, including holidays. It depends how complex your organization is. There are knowledge creators who have the abundance of knowledge, and there are those in the organization that don't have it, that are seeking the knowledge. They may not even know who those creators are. So knowledge quality, how much of that is the seeker getting? Are they getting the right information? Is it the best quality information, the best quality knowledge to move forward? There's knowledge hoarding, people who have knowledge, who don't share that knowledge. That's a significant problem in many organizations. And in many ways, the organization's fighting itself and competing against competition. Other challenging issues with knowledge management, it's not easily found. Knowledge cannot be found quickly or rapidly, but through a very painstaking process. Loss of capability comes with not retaining your knowledge, not understanding the knowledge, not knowing where it exists. Also, there's knowledge loss. People leave the organization. So people who are subject matter experts may not be replaced with someone who has the same set of experiences. There's also people who are not downloading the information to the organization. So as part of an organization, I was promoted, and in that promotion, I was trying to download as much knowledge as possible. I didn't know what that organization needed. I asked every person in the organization, I would count down, I have 10 more business days, 8 more business days, 5 more business days. What can I help you with, and what do you need to know? And that was an opportunity that organization lost. Now, there's differentiation of knowledge, information, and data. Knowledge is truly that insight and experience and know-how, critical know-how. Now, there's information, which is organized, categorized, and contextualized data. Data is raw data. That's numbers. It's information. It's characteristics, but it's not organized. So maybe the IT department owns the information management as well as data management, but they should not own the knowledge management, very simply because that is actually created and owned by every person in the organization. There are many elements in knowledge in terms of those people who have implicit knowledge, those people who are seeking knowledge. There are codifications, that is maybe documents, maybe presentations. Maybe there's a database of information. Maybe there is also audio and visual data that needs to be included into the elements. There's a lot of elements in knowledge that needs to be distributed throughout the organization over time, and it needs to be found easily. Now, the current state really notes that the knowledge owners have a lot of knowledge. In fact, the scale is not at an equilibrium. Knowledge seekers are at a deficit. So knowledge management can help to level that out, make that an equilibrium. So knowledge management helps knowledge to flow freely throughout the organization. So this knowledge strategy is to implement in a very logical and sensible manner to really make a meaningful knowledge management program. So first of all, you have to plan for it. You have to write it out. It has to be a written plan. It has to be approved and supported by the executive management team. It also needs a charter. Charters are thought of, say, as only for projects, but they're not. They're for initiatives. They're also for programs. They're for anything that is like this, which is a knowledge management program. You want to make sure that it's codifiable. You want to make sure that it's understandable, that it's also written down and documented what is the purpose of a knowledge management plan and initiative. Also, additionally, you list goals. What are you trying to achieve? How many hours are you trying to save from people searching for knowledge? How are you trying to measure what people are experiencing in the new format of a knowledge management program? So organize and collect the knowledge, making sure it's findable. We're finding ways of organizing it so people can locate that knowledge much more quickly. Creating forums, if it's individuals, to really glean that information to the knowledge seeker. It's also to share and promote the knowledge. So people may not realize that knowledge exists in-house. People would like to share, like to promote, and understand the knowledge that does exist in-house. So you want to make sure you're analyzing and measuring the results of your knowledge management plan. Is it according to the written plan? Are there things you need to adjust or to promote? And also you want to make sure that you're making traction. Your executive management team or your leadership team may question the knowledge management plan if it is not something that they find that can be supported. You can enhance this over time because you cannot do everything at one time. And you also need to find a way to sustain this over time. All this is very doable. And after you have a strategy, you can think about implementation, the tactical aspects of a knowledge management plan. These are a suggestion in terms of steps. I've identified these in terms of what I've done in the past or what I might suggest in an organization. It may not include all these elements, and of course you can't do these at one given time or a given period, say in 1 year or even half a year. You need to do this over time and to build this in terms of phases. So a quick hit might be an expert directory. Who are the SMEs? What do they do? And what is their experience? And that could be something that's shared in terms of all the knowledge seekers, in terms of maybe all the organization's individual contributors, so they know and they can pull on those individuals with a question or perhaps a meeting or perhaps involvement in a project they are working on. So in communities of practice, what you do is you bring together people who are doing similar things across the organization. There's going to be people of similar functionality, and all this can be gleaning knowledge to each other, bringing perhaps a community together to talk about problems that they're experiencing together or solutions or insights that they have gained in their positions. And also there's the ability to bring in a knowledge base, wikis, and collaborative spaces to allow that free flow of knowledge to be gleaned and transferred to other people in the organization. So a process base can house and store all the processes that might exist in an organization, say another partner organization or stakeholder organization, to understand the process. Perhaps it helps them to develop or create their own process on something else. It's about knowledge mapping, to making sure there are ways of understanding where the knowledge exists and how to pull that knowledge. Storytelling and knowledge fairs. Lessons learned, I think, is really important because you can actually talk through past experiences, definitely written down. And I expect this in terms of, say, not just project management, but also knowledge management. When you look at this, it's able to pull situations and scenarios that you learned in the past. So lessons learned, think about this in terms of experience. That's a huge part of knowledge. Apprenticeship. So especially for tacit experiences or tacit knowledge holders, it's really hard for an organization to develop another person. It's not just gleaning information. It's not reading exactly what they've done. It's having an apprenticeship to, say, mirror that person in terms of what they're doing and learning how to do what they do. Looking at knowledge, competency, bank, intellectual capital. This is really to put together that comprehensive capabilities of knowledge within an organization, making sure it's made available and known and it's banked. And it's something to think about in terms of, say, intellectual capital. What can the organization flex when it needs to maybe address a certain problem or issue, or even complete an innovation that other organizations can't do? In terms of knowledge management, the top thing to be doing and working towards is creating a knowledge culture. So they're freely sharing knowledge and information. They're making it very accessible. They think about, in terms of what they're doing, it is ingrained in what someone does and how they do what they're doing, making sure that it's as promotional as possible, it's findable as possible, it's accessible as possible. And that's something that's built in terms of culture. You don't even think about it. It's second nature. Like, what am I going to title this? Where does it live? What are some hashtags that can locate that or associate this particular document so it's findable in a knowledge base? So there's ways of getting there, and it's really a complement to the organization when it reaches this particular point of knowledge culture. It is very important to do. Again, it's something that competitors won't be doing. Some organizations think they do this already, but they really don't. So lastly, I'm going to show you in the appendix, I've included a charter, reasons for the charter, the what, who, where, why, when, and how. So I'm not going to go through each of these, but these help to scope out what it is, how it's supportable, who owns what, how it's completed. So this is to help organizations to understand how they got where they are with their knowledge management organization, their knowledge management history, and it helps to pivot forward in case there needs to be a change in terms of that particular charter, or maybe it's an increase in scope and capability of that organization. So that's to help organizations to look at this for the long run, making sure they understand how things will operate in the future. And I think knowledge is king. You don't necessarily know what somebody's going to need in the future, but you can definitely help them to move forward. How many times have you been in a meeting where someone says, why was that done? And the answer is often, we don't know. And a knowledge management plan will help you to get to where you need to be to have a best-in-class organization. Knowledge management is not just by wishing it to happen, it's by an organized effort that's planned out. So thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.